Hi everyone, welcome to Gnan Cloud Garage. In this session, I'm going to talk about how to install vCenter Server 8.0 on VMware Workstation 16 Pro virtual machine. Okay, so vCenter Server, we already aware of vCenter Server 7.0 earlier, and we talk about the vCenter importance. So let's quickly recap. Even the vCenter recently latest version is 8.0. And normally to manage multiple ESXi hosts, let's say we installed ESXi 0, 1, 2, 3. I took the example of 3 ESXi hosts running on a bare metal hardware. So let's say one of the hardware I took the example is HPE hardware. So ESXi 0, 1 is running on a HPE hardware. To manage these 3 ESXi hosts and also the virtual machine, we require a vCenter server. So vCenter server, we call it as VCSA also. VCSA means vCenter Server Appliance, and the latest version 8.0. And before installing the vCenter server, we have to follow some pre-installation steps and installation procedure and post-installation steps. These three stages I will explain one by one while we start the lab. Okay, so let's quickly log into the lab system. Let's say we have VMware Workstation. If you see the version help about VMware Workstation, it's a 16th Pro version. Okay, so let me close, and to create a vCenter server on Workstation VM, how we can choose is normally we have a three options. Create a new virtual machine. This option is to mount ISO and install. And for open virtual format or open virtual appliance format, because vCenter server is a appliance only. To install the appliance, we recommend option to choose is open a virtual machine option. Okay, and if you want to connect any remote server, either ESX or any Windows machine, you can use this option. Okay, so now to install vCenter server appliance, the relevant option is choose the second option, open a virtual machine, and we can look for a vCenter server appliance file within our local system. Currently, with interest of our time, I already downloaded and copied to the C drive temp. So go to the C drive temp, you can see VMware vCenter server appliance 8.0. So this is in a open virtual format. That means OVF format. So select that file and click on open. So it is asking for a import virtual machine end user license agreement. So if you have time, you can go through all the license agreement and just accept the agreement. Okay. Now click on next, and the name of your virtual machine. So you can use any of the name. Let's say I'm just mentioning the name as vCenter Server Appliance, in short form VCSA 01. Okay, and when we enter the virtual machine name, just click on next, and default storage path is C drive. This is the location, and make sure that before installing the vCenter server, we should have enough space in our C drive. So currently C drive have a 790 GB free space. So we have enough free space. So click on next. And while installing the vCenter server, we have a different sizes of deployment, same like our t-shirt size. So this sizing includes tiny vCenter server and small vCenter, medium vCenter, large vCenter. Even the same four method, there is a additional options also with extra large storage and extra large storage options. Suppose if I select a small vCenter server, the first option, in the below you can see there is a 4 CPU, 19 GB and 494 GB of disk space. Suppose if I select the medium vCenter, you can see 8 virtual CPU, 28 GB of memory and 708 GB of disk space. Similarly, large means obviously the space will be increased. Same scenario for tiny. So compared to small, medium, large, tiny means it's a very small. So I'm choosing the tiny vCenter server because it's a home lab system only. But in the production environment, depends on our infrastructure size. We should go with a either small, medium, and large size of vCenter server. Okay, so for testing purpose, I am choosing a tiny vCenter server. Same procedure applicable for other sizes. Now click on next, and we have to provide a network configuration details. So this network configuration, how we can provide is there is a information icon in the right side. If you click on information icon, you can see either we can enter IPv4 or IPv6. Currently we are going for a IP version 4. So we can assign as IPv4. And host network mode. The network mode also you can assign a static IP or dynamic IP, DHCP IP. So I'm just going for a static IP. Even in the real-time scenarios, most of the recommendation IP is static IP only. That means manually assigned IP address. And host network IP address, let's say we can choose any one IP address, 192.168.10 dot, let's say, for example, I'm just choosing the .9. And host prefix, that means the subnet mask prefix is it is in a class C. So class C means subnet mask range is 24 prefix length. And host network default gateway, so default gateway is it's our lab system, all the systems gateways ends with 1. And network DNS server, so our lab DNS server IP address, so DNS server IPs ends with 10. And host network identity, so that means our vCenter server we have to assign as a fully qualified domain name. Even if you select the information, it says fully qualified domain name. So our vCenter name we given as a vcsa01 dot, and our domain name demolab.com. This is our lab domain controller name. So once we given this network configuration, and make sure this information is correct. If you given any incorrect IP settings, the vCenter deployment may fail. So make sure all the settings should be accurate. Now click on import. So it may take a while to import the vCenter server, and once it is imported, you can see the import is shows what one virtual machine created in the left side. If you see in our left side, our VMware workstation running with the two VMs, one is Active Directory, one ESXi host. Once the import is completed, we can see VCSC also another third VM. So importing is in progress. Once it is imported, it will automatically power on and boot up the vCenter server appliance. Okay, if you see already it's a vCenter is powered on automatically, and it's a default running with VMware OS Photon OS version 3. So vCenter server appliance booting is in progress. So this booting may take couple of minutes, and usually we have to wait when until we get the gray and blue color screen. Okay, and even during the boot up time, it may reboot couple of times. So we need to wait and just monitor the system until we get the gray and blue color screen. Okay, so in the meantime, until this boot up complete, even when you see the screen, don't do anything. We need to wait. It may do another couple of reboots to finish the complete the vCenter server first stage of deployment. So in the meantime, I will run through the slides. So let's back to the slide. So this diagram is the high level vCenter server architecture. So in simple term, vCenter is mainly to manage multiple virtual machines and ESXi host. And it is also have a so many key features. Now let's start the another point. vCenter Server 8.0 resource requirement. Just now during the installation, we noticed that there is a different type of deployment sizes: tiny, small, medium, large, and X large. So tiny means what is the CPU count is minimum is 2 CPU, and memory we require 14 GB of memory, and storage is 579 GB. And the capacity of this tiny vCenter server capacity is it supports up to 10 ESXi hosts and 100 virtual machines. And small, if you select the vCenter server deployment size as small, the capacity ESXi host limit is until 100. And medium means 400, and large means 1000 ESXi host. X large means 2000 ESXi host. So depends on our company organization infrastructure size. We need to choose the relevant vCenter server deployment size. Okay, but in our home lab, I just choose the minimum one, that is tiny. Okay, so hope you clear about this point. And even if you see the virtual machines maximum limit configuration limit, tiny it supports until 100 virtual machine, and X large it supports until 35,000 virtual machines. Okay, now let's talk about vCenter Server 8.0 pre-installation steps. So pre-installation steps are verify that our system meets the minimum software and hardware requirement. That means wherever we are installing on ESXi host, we need to verify whether ESXi host have enough CPU memory and storage requirement before installing the vCenter server. That is important. and download the vCenter Server installer ISO from VMware website. So vCenter 8 was released last week only. Last week, 11th October, Tuesday only they released. So you can also download from VMware website and test it in your labs. And mount it to a network virtual machine or physical server. Wherever you want, you can just mount that ISO and which we want to perform the deployment. And we already started deployment on workstation, and the machine from which we deploy the appliance must run on a, either you can use the operating system Windows, Linux, or Macintosh operating system, but in our lab I am showing you using a Windows operating system. So same way, if you want to test it in other flavor OS, we can test it and gather the target ESXi host details. So if you want to install ESX vCenter directly on ESX level, we require ESXi host detail, and this is the recommended procedure during the real-time scenarios. Most of the time, vCenter is running as a ESXi host virtual machine only. Just for testing purpose, I'm creating vCenter is in a workstation, but it's not a production requirement. It's for just for test requirement only. Okay. So, but in the real-time scenario, we need to get the ESXi host details on which host we plan to install. And another point is verify that ESXi host is not in the lockdown mode or maintenance mode before we start the vCenter installation. And verify that NTP servers are running state, because should be a time synchronization between ESXi host and vCenter. That means NTP service should be up and running, and gather the IP settings from network team and our IP inventory list. And similarly, we have to get the storage details from storage team. Either we can configure storage fiber channel SAN or iSCSI SAN network attached storage, or you can configure a software defined storage or any of the hyper-converged infrastructure storages. So there are plenty of methods we can configure storage. So whatever our organization is choosing, the relevant storage details, we have to keep it ready before we start the vCenter 8.0 installation. Okay, and create a host record and pointer records within our DNS server and fixed IP address and fully qualified domain name. So before installing vCenter server, we make sure that our DNS record should be created. So this DNS record verification, we quickly verify in our lab system. If we log into the AD Active Directory and verify DNS record is created or not. So when we log into the Active Directory DNS system, select the domain name and you can look for a VCSA. See DNS record created, host record is created. Same way pointer record, let's say IP address pointer record also created. Okay, so that point only I'm highlighting here. And another point, get ready with a supported web browser. Even if you want to, once the installation is complete, first stage, we need to monitor the status from using a browser. Either you can use Google Chrome browser, Firefox browser, or Microsoft Edge. Whatever you want, you can access mainly for a vSphere client access. Okay. And another point is, see, I mentioned as download, right? You can download it from a VMware website. See, here is the release date information. So last time I shown you how to install ESXi8. So today's session I'm showing you the vCenter Server 8.0 installation. Okay, and we also have NSX 4.0 and VMware tools. Okay, I will show you in the later sessions. Now, if you see the appliance deployment, normally we can deploy it in a four methods. Like first method is installation. So this session we are doing a installation method. Suppose in your organization, if you have a vCenter server 6 series 6.0, 6.5 or 6.7, you will have a facility to upgrade it to the 7 series, or you can directly upgrade it to the 8 series. And migration, suppose if you have a Windows flavor vCenter, you can migrate it to vCenter server 8.0. And even if your vCenter server is down and if you want to restore from existing backup, you can use a restore method. So the same point they mentioned here, restore from a previous vCenter server backup. Okay, so currently we are doing the first option, installation method. And even the vCenter server appliance, if you want to install, it is in a two-stage process. So stage one, deploy OVF or new vCenter server. That is the stage one. So deploy a new vCenter server. We currently in progress of stage one. Okay, and stage two, configuration of a new vCenter server, or we call it as a setup vCenter server. So even if you see the diagram, stage two, it is a setup vCenter server. So currently the stage one, if you see the green tick mark, we are already completing the stage one, and now we are going to do the stage two. So let's quickly jump to our recent lab system and verify the status. So let's back to the vCenter server console. If you see here, let's try to press in the vCenter guest OS console. It will press the F2 because we haven't given, see, it will prompt for a password. So default no password, we have to enter the password. So I have given the password. Now enter. So once it is entered, root password is set, and even management network, if you want to verify, you can verify. We given the IP address, subnet mask default gateway, and IPv6, we are not going to do any changes. And DNS configuration, we entered the DNS server, and also we have given a DNS host name. And the custom DNS suffixes, we can mention our domain name, demolab.com. Click on enter. So once it is completed, just escape, and to apply the changes, press Y to save the settings. So network information is saved. So saving the network configuration settings. So in the meantime, the saving is in progress. Yeah, it is completed. It's showing as failed, but safely ignore because the network is just coming up. Yeah. Now, if you see from the screen, vCenter server 8.0 and it is showing as HTTPS fully qualified domain name and port number is 5480. Either we can access using FQDN or we can access using IP address. So open a browser. Let me open Google Chrome and type the IP address. So HTTPS and our vCenter IP address is 9 and port number 5480. Enter. So once we press enter, it will launch the vCenter server page. So stage one is completed and we are going to a stage two now. So enter the credentials. See, if you see in the desktop screen, vSphere 8.0 getting started vCenter server, it's clearly mentioned vCenter server 8.0 has been successfully installed. However, additional steps must be completed before it is available for use. Okay, that is the additional steps is nothing but a second stage setup of vCenter server. And click on the one of the links below to continue setup. So to continue the setup, our scenario recommendation is setup only. But other scenarios, if you are upgrading scenario, you can choose second box, and the migrating scenario, we need to choose the third option, and fourth option is for restore scenario. So for our scenario, we are configuring a new vCenter server. It is a stage 2 now. So now click on setup. See, if you see in the diagram, stage 1 is showing as tick mark and stage 2 we are going to configure now. So click on next, and it is showing vCenter server configuration details. Whatever configuration we given during the stage one, all information is showing here. So all information is correct, and time configuration and SSH, if you want to enable, you can enable now, or else we can enable it later as part of the post configuration steps. So let's leave it as default. Now click on next. Because NTP and SSH, we can do it as part of the post configuration steps. So now we have to assign a SSO, single sign-on configuration. Either you can create new SSO domain or join to an existing SSO domain. Suppose if your organization, you already have a existing vCenter server. If you want to integrate with your existing vCenter, you can choose join an existing SSO domain. But in our lab, this is the first vCenter. So we can relevant option is create a new SSO domain, and default domain name is vSphere.local, and administrator is administrator, and assign the password. Okay, and confirm the password. So now click on next. And this is for a customer experience improvement program. If you want to join, you can join, or else just uncheck, click on next, and ready to complete. If you see our network details of vCenter server and the time NTP and SSH is in deactivated stage, we can enable later, and SSO details we given administrator at the rate vSphere.local domain, and also the customer experience improvement program CEIP, we just opt out. Okay, so now click on finish. It may take a while to finish the second stage. So we need to wait to finish the second stage until the 100%. See, if you see install stage 2 vCenter server setup is in progress. Currently showing the percentage 4%. So it may take a while to reach the 100%. In the meantime, I will run through the slides. Okay, so let's back to the slide. So we are exactly at the stage 2 now. So let's back another slide is it's this slides talk about implementation procedure. So mount the ISO on system vCenter server installation is a two-stage process. Correct. We already verified these two stages. So stage 1 deploy vCenter server. We already done this step, and deploy OVA file or OVF, Open Virtual Appliance, another name Open Virtual Format file as a vCenter server appliance. And the first stage involves deploying a new vCenter server to the target ESXi host. But in our lab system, instead of target ESXi, we choose target as a workstation VM. Okay, that is only the difference. But in the real time scenarios, we need to choose the specific ESXi host and define vCenter server appliance name and root password. We already assigned the password and select the deployment size, memory, CPU and storage size. We already selected the deployment size as tiny size. And another point, select the data store location. Default data store location is thin disk format, and configure network settings. We already configured, and stage 2 set up a vCenter server. We already run the stage 2, and logging to the vCenter server appliance like VAMI. VAMI means vCenter appliance management interface. Okay, either you can use full name or short name. VAMI page. We already log into the VAMI page using HTTPS IP address colon port number 5480. We already log into VAMI page and configure the appliance time configuration. vCenter single sign-on. We configure single sign-on. Time configuration, we can enable it as part of the post configuration or post installation steps. And the second stage completes the setup of a vCenter server. So as I mentioned, once this second stage reach the 100%, that is only the vCenter server installation procedure. Okay, so second stage, this screenshot we already verified in our lab. Okay, so within the once the second stage is completed, we have to configure a post installation steps. But while configuring post installation steps, we need to log into the vCenter server using vSphere client. Okay, so before explaining the post installation steps, we'll quickly monitor the installation status now. Again, back to our lab system. So monitor the status. Currently, it is at the 34%. So it may take some more time to finish the 100%. So with interest of our time, I will also explain the post installation steps during this installation procedure. Okay, so back to the slide again. So once the vCenter installation is completed, two stages, stage 1 and stage 2, we should have to perform the post installation steps. So how we can perform post installation steps? Log into vCenter server using vSphere client and start, create and organize our vCenter server inventory objects. So inventory objects means creating a data center, add the ESXi host to vCenter and create a cluster, enable HCA These all consider as a create and organizing the vCenter inventory objects. Okay, and assign vCenter server appliance license and enable VCSA shell and SSH. Shell means it's a direct, we can access the VCSA shell prompt, and you can also access through SSH client. Like you can use PuTTY tool to connect to our vCenter server and enable NTP network time protocol. Port number is 123, mainly for time synchronization, and enable SNMP for monitoring purpose, simple network management protocol, and enable SMTP mail transfer protocol. If you want to get any notification from the vCenter server health status or any of the reports, if you want to send it automatically, or you want to know the backup status and completed successfully or not, these and all we can get the notified using SMTP protocol. So it will send a notification to whatever the email we mentioned in the vCenter appliance level, those emails or group team emails, it will send the notifications. And create a data center in vCenter server. This is the first post installation step. And add the ESXi host to vCenter, correct? And the configure ESXi host networking, we have a optional. You can configure either vSwitch networking or DV-switch, depends on our customer's choice, and also the license. If you want to configure DV-switch, we require a vCenter Server Enterprise Plus license. And configure ESXi host storage, local, NAS, iSCSI or SAN, but we no need to configure all. Whatever the customer is choosing, specific storage only we have to configure. So with why, that's the reason I mentioned as optional. Based on the customer's choice, you can choose relevant storage. And create a virtual machines, template, clone and snapshot. These are all the our day to operations. And create a cluster, enable cluster features, HADRS. Even if you want to configure vSAN, we can configure. And configure syslog server mainly to centralize maintain the all our vCenter logs. Generally vCenter log retention period is 6 months or 180 days. If you want to maintain the last 1 year data or more than 1 year data, we have to send all our vCenter server logs to one of the centralized log server, that is called syslog server. So syslog server means we can use one of the VMware product like vRealize login site, or the new name is Aria login site. Or if you want to use your third party tools, like you can use SolarWinds, Kiwi, syslog server, anything we can use. That is also subjected to be customer's choice. And create a test VMs and test the image backup and VCSA. Backup VCSA are optional. Normally, once the vCenter is running successfully and creating the VM, we need to do a one test backup also before we creating a production VMs and moving to a production live. Okay, there are one test backup is recommended. And install the vCenter server enhance link to mode. This is also optional. If the customer have a multiple vCenter server, that scenario we can use this feature. And validate vCenter server health status for all resources via VAMI page. And later I will show you once it is completed how the VAMI page looks like. And start managing vSphere environment. And this is only end of the vCenter server deployment. Okay, so let's back to our lab system and see the status. So currently it is at the 58%. Okay, maybe we have to wait a few more minutes. So in the meantime, let's back to the slide again. So hope you clear about the post installation steps. Let me explain you the another one of the key point troubleshooting portion. Let's say we sent us our appliance deployment. Normally when we are deploying on your lab system or your office production environment, there are some known issues. So one of the known issue is, let's say vCenter 8.0. Today, before I'm recording this video, I just tested in our lab system. I also faced this error message. This error, it clearly says encountered an internal error, and we have to review one of the first boot log file. So what this error is saying is, this error says that when we are using a default open virtual appliance format, whatever we download from the vCenter server, OVA file, that OVA file, if you're trying to directly install on workstation, you may encounter this error message. So what VMware recommended solution is, when you encounter this error, we have to convert our vcsa.ova file to OVF format. OVA means Open Virtual Appliance format. You can convert this OVA format to OVF, Open Virtual Format, using OVF tool. Okay, so where we can find the OVF tool is, we can find directly in our image file itself. Let's say, let's log into our lab system. Let me show you currently 64%. Okay, suppose in our C drive, I already downloaded the vCenter server appliance. So this vCenter server appliance, I mounted it to our system. See, VMware vCenter server 8.0. I mounted to CD drive. Even if you want to mount, just right click here, mount. Okay, once it is mounted as C drive, E drive, and there is a multiple folders. If you see vcsa CLI installer, that means we can install vCenter server appliance using a command line interface method, or you can install vCenter server using a user interface, that means graphical user interface method, or another method is vcsa appliance method. So if you open vcsa folder, you can see this is a open virtualization format. Even if you want to see the extension, go to the view and we can see the extension file also, or else right click here, go to the properties. We can see this extension file is .ova format. When we are using a .ova format, if you want to install .ova format on your workstation VM, you may encounter this error message, encountered an internal error message. So what VMware given recommended workaround is we have to convert the OVA file to OVF format, Open Virtual Format. If you want to convert that one, see within this VCSA folder, we have a OVF tool also. Okay, using this OVF tool also you can run it on Linux OS, Macintosh operating system or Windows operating system. Normally in our lab we have Windows system, so we can use this folder. Within this folder you can see OVF application, OVF tool. Using this application only we can change open virtual appliance format file to, we can change it to open virtual format. That means in short form OVA2 we are changing to OVF. Once we change it to OVF, then you can launch the OVF installation. The installation is running smoothly. This OVE, I also changed the same thing. I copied OVF format to temp directory. If you see here, here is the file format. You can see OVF format, Open Virtualization Format Package. So this package only running smoothly. If I'm used OVA format in workstation, it's giving a error message. Okay, but troubleshooting step, maybe I will come up with another video to do the step by step how I converted the OVF, how I converted OVA to OVF using OVF tool. Okay, that portion I will explain in a later session. Okay, so this is the one known issue. And another known issue is deployment resource sizing. Suppose in our real-time scenarios also, if you are planning to choose a large vCenter server, but in our data store, if you do not have a one 1.3, approximately 1.3 terabyte of storage, definitely our deployment may fail. So make sure that before installing the vCenter server, whatever the deployment size you choose, we should have enough resources within our vCenter level, enough resources within our ESXi host level. Sorry. So ESXi host level, suppose if I select a medium size vCenter, we should have normally CPU wise no issues. Main concerns with memory and storage. We should have a 30 GB memory free space, and that means enough resources should be available on ESXi host level, and approximately 900 GB or close to 1 TB space free space is needed to install a medium deployment size of vCenter server. Okay, these two are the common known issues, and maybe if you encounter any other issues, let me know through the comments. I will explain in the later sessions. Okay, so let's back to our lab system and we'll verify what is the status now. So minimize this wizard, close. Yeah, we almost reaching the 88 percentage. So once we reach the 100%, we can verify the VAMI page and also the vSphere client page. Okay. So just monitor the screen for a while. So in the meantime, we'll open a workstation console. See here, vCenter server is already created. Okay, guest voice level, no screen, still showing the same screen. So hope you got the complete information of pre-installation steps, installation procedure using two stages, stage 1 and stage 2, and post-installation steps. And finally, we talked about the vCenter server known issues. Seems the vCenter related services starting is in progress. Usually we no need to do any changes at this stage. We can just monitor only. Usually if you want to take a short break, you can just leave at this stage 2 and come back after some time, it will finish it. So still 12 more percents to go. Come on, come on. We'll monitor the console screen, how it is. Okay, it is still in the normal state. You can see on the screen vCenter Server 8.0 and it is configured with 2 CPU and for approximately 14 GB of memory, because it's not in the GB format, GIB format, but it's equivalent to 14 GB. And once it is completed, for VAMI page access, we can access through HTTPS colon fully qualified domain name colon 5480. That is for a VAMI interface, vCenter Appliance Management Interface. And to access the vCenter, you can use either host name or IP address. Any browser and type HTTPS and IP address, you can launch the vCenter vSphere client. I'm just checking the network status. Okay, IP is still reachable. It seems we may need to wait for a couple of minutes. In the meantime, I'm just will quickly check ESX host is up or not. Okay, ESX is up state. I'm just using the another tab and type the ESX host. Okay, this is a new view for ESXi host client and version 8.0. Currently we are in the evaluation mode. Storage is 0 and virtual machines also 0. So if we want to add a additional storage, we can add, let's say ESXi host, go to the edit settings, and hard disk for OS we given as 40 GB. If you want to add a additional storage, let's select the hard disk and choose the recommended one and create a new virtual disk. Let's say the virtual disk, we can create it as single disk, and the size approximately, let's say I'm selecting as 50 GB. So click on next. So virtual machine disk file name is vmname.vmdk. Click on finish. So now click on OK. So once we add a new hard disk, to apply the changes, it require a restart. So right click the VM, power, restart guest. Okay, I'm just adding a disk for the ESXi host. The same ESX later, once the vCenter installation is completed, we can add this ESXi host to vCenter server. So what is the status? Still 88. The ESXi rebooting is in progress. Okay, seems our vCenter server homepage is showing like this. That means it's already completed. Click on advanced and click on proceed and log in with the password. See, vCenter server management. That means it's a VAMI page only. So for VAMI page login is root and password VMware @123. So if you see here, we can see VCSA host name and the version is 8.0 and this is a build number and uptime is 36 minutes. And currently health status is overall good. CPU, memory, database and storage, everything is good. And one key point here in the vCenter 8 is earlier we have a PSC, platform service controller. This platform service controller generally it can be available in two ways. Embedded, its defaults comes with vCenter inbuilt, and another one is external PSC. But from the vSphere 8 onwards, vCenter 8 onwards, this embedded only available and the external PSC concept is deprecated completely. No more external PSC. Okay, that is important point. And even monitor, we can see here whatever we discussed in the post installation steps. So monitoring we can do, and we can also access from SSH login, currently deactivated. If you want to enable, click edit and enable. And the networking options we already configured, and later if you want to configure proxy settings, click on edit and configure FTP, HTTPS and HTTP. And even firewall settings we can configure, and the NTP also we can enable from VAMI page. And make sure if you want to verify the service status, always all automatic service should be healthy state and started state. And if you want to update the latest patches in future, we have to use the update tab. And administration tab, mainly it will maintain about the password expiry details. And the syslog server, just to configure the syslog server, there is a configure option. And the backup, if you want to configure a backup, normally it recommend to configure for a daily backup, we can choose this option. Okay, and to log into vSphere client, so just enter the vCenter server IP address 10.9. Once you type 10.9, we can able to log into vCenter server using vSphere client. So while log into vSphere client, see the login is vSphere client, login is administrator, vsphere.local and enter the password. See, log into the vCenter server using vSphere client. So here is the loading page. And to see the shortcuts, go to the shortcuts tab. So you can see all the inventory objects, host and clusters, VMs and templates, storage, networking, content library, same like vCenter 7, but only the some new features are added. Okay, these and all I will explain separately in the later session. And back to our vSphere client, we already restarted. And if you want to add the storage, click new data store, click on next, and enter the storage name is, let's say, local data store, but it's not detected yet. Let me refresh and relogin. So click on new data store. Next, see now the 50 GB is detected and we are maintaining the name as local data store. So local data store, this is the first data store. So mention name as a DS01. Click on next. We are assigning as a VMFS6 is the latest. Click on next, ready to complete. So click on S. So this is how we can add the data store. And when it comes to the vCenter server, so vSphere client, see it's saying that there are 60 days evaluation period. If you want to add the licenses, we can add. If I select the evaluation license period, it says the time will be like a 60 days only. Okay, later we can add the additional licenses. Currently the expiration will be until the December 15. Okay, so that's it for today. Hope you got the information of vCenter server, pre-installation, installation procedure, and post-installation steps. And we also talk about the known issues. Okay, thank you. If you're watching this video first time, please do view, like, share, and subscribe to the Gnan Cloud Garage channel. And if you're already subscribed, I appreciate all your support. Bye for now.